Oh, I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free and be no segregation, no segregation, no segregation, no segregation over me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave.
What you just heard was a civil rights protest song pertaining to the Black movement. But it does include many others because I believe it's how women, farm workers, and African Americans felt in their static situation. They wanted to be free. They didn't want to be held down from their eggshell that they wanted to break out of by society. We will be looking at the civil rights protest movements from the 1960s into the 1970s. Was filled with many violent protests, farm workers, and the second women's movement and clubbing. The violence angered many. The leaders of these many violent protests, the Black Panthers, led by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, the violence angered many. The only way the leaders of these violent groups, such as the Black Panthers, led by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, the violence created a fear leading to retaliation with the police and causing the violence created a fear leading to retaliation. The Black Panthers got their ideas from Malcolm X, who also liked protesters to defend themselves with arms. The Black Panthers got their ideas from Malcolm X. We'll be looking at protesters to defend themselves with arms. Here is what Dr. Mary Corey, professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, has to say about the Black Panthers. We'll be looking at three specific movements from the 1960s to the 1970s. The farmer interesting individual, civil rights, that was a huge civil rights activist, and who protested peacefully within the system, type of protest made change the president. For the aggressive, he peacefully protested against segregation in his own way, better affecting he passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964 the sit-ins prohibiting racial discrimination in employment and schools, prohibiting racial discrimination also in public places. It was a cornerstone. When we study protesting, there are a few questions we need to ask ourselves. Did aggressive or peaceful protest affect more change on issues against leaders of the civil rights protests? Why did people protest and for what? And in retaliation, started protesting came from and burning. We also have to understand a lot of African Americans, what exactly they were trying to accomplish with their actions. Specifically, now, there were peaceful protesters and aggressive in the civil rights movement. For instance, Martin Luther King only believed in peaceful protests and had many of his own views and philosophies inspired by Gandhi. I quote, "The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy." Now, civil rights protests consisted of sit-ins and also violent actions. There were times when they started out peaceful, turning violent, ending with arrests, injuries, and death. Now, to look at the farm workers movement, Cesar Chavez was a huge ambassador and led many strikes. He also starved himself for about 21 days, and he did this because he believed that his actions would inspire change.
And holding shotguns is
Cesar Chavez also led a 300-mile march from Delano to Sacramento, consisting of Filipino and Latino farm workers, protesting years of poor pay and conditions.
Really open its arms and say,
they also boycotted
sit
grapes.
Together at the table of
Mr. Chavez asked all strikers to remain nonviolent, and the strike drew unprecedented support outside Central Valley from activists to civil rights groups. Caesar believed nonviolence was more powerful than violence. Caesar quoted Gandhi in saying, "Do something. Offer your life. If you really want to do something, be willing to die for it." Caesar expressed Dr. King wrote Cesar Chavez, expressing his greatest admiration and solidarity to his actions. Finally, in 1970, the work paid off. The NFA was a success. Table grape growers signed union contracts granting workers better pay, benefits, and protections.
Utilizing protesting.
The women's movement
Freedom
of the 1960s
now. Equal rights now.
through the 1970s
This
was
video
filled with feminist
contains
ambitions and
mild
goals
violence.
of personal liberation.
Not recommended
This was
for
another
kids.
movement that mostly consisted of peaceful protesting. Women were being paid 60% lower wages than men. They protested for the end of domestic violence, and black women were protesting racial
We are conscious
exploitation,
of the historical significance of our pilgrimage.
along with demand
It is
to
clearly
not be
evident that
a
our
guinea
path
pig for
travels
birth
through a valley
control.
well known
Both
to all
white
Mexican
and black
farm workers.
challenge discriminatory
We know all
laws.
of these towns
The
of
feminist
Delano,
chief
Madero,
goal was to
Fresno,
overturn
Modesto,
American
Stockton, and
beliefs that they were
Sacramento.
only suited for domestic
Because along
housework,
this very same
and that
road,
men were
in
intellectually
this very
inferior.
same valley,
Women's
the
protests
Mexican
were
race has
aggressive,
sacrificed
but
itself for the
nonviolent,
last 100 years.
sometimes leading
Our sweat
to police
and
having
our
to break
blood
them
have
up
fallen
because
on
of all
this
the
land to
passion
make
that was
other
being
men
put
rich.
into their
This pilgrimage
movements.
is a witness to the suffering we have seen for generations.
According to Frances Beale, in an essay from 1969, she states, "It is also her right and responsibility to determine when it is her own best interest to have children, how many she will have, and how far apart, and this right must not be relinquished to anyone." Now that we looked at both aggressive and peaceful protests,